The Zarkax Empire had ruled the Orion Arm for over 10,000 years. Their sophisticated society, built on precise hierarchy and unwavering discipline, had never faced a serious challenge to their dominance. When their long-range scouts first detected radio signals from a backwater solar system, the Empire's response was one of mild curiosity rather than concern. The initial survey reports described Earth as unremarkable, a Class 3 death world with a developing civilization. The humans, according to preliminary observations, appeared to be fractious and technologically primitive. The Zarkax High Command designated Earth as a low-priority target for eventual incorporation into the Empire. That changed when detailed scans revealed substantial deposits of rare quantum crystalline minerals in Earth's crust, materials vital to the Empire's faster-than-light drive systems. The High Command's interest suddenly intensified. Standard protocol would have called for careful diplomatic contact, but the Zarkax had grown arrogant over millennia of unchallenged rule. Admiral Vecteri, commander of the Empire's Third Expansion Fleet, decided a show of force would expedite the acquisition process. His fleet of 50 warships emerged from hyperspace in a perfect attack formation, appearing simultaneously over Earth's major population centers. The massive vessels, each nearly 5 kilometers long, cast ominous shadows over cities across the globe. Vecteri expected immediate capitulation. Instead, Earth's military forces scrambled to defensive positions with surprising speed and coordination. The Admiral was mildly impressed, but ultimately unconcerned. He transmitted the standard demands for submission in all known human languages, giving them one planetary rotation to surrender control of their mineral resources. The responses from Earth's governments were not what he anticipated. Instead of fear or compliance, he received a unified message requesting diplomatic dialogue and peaceful cooperation. Vecteri interpreted this as a sign of weakness. In his 10,000 years of service, he had never encountered a species that chose diplomacy when faced with overwhelming military superiority. His first demonstration of power targeted an uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. A single energy blast from his flagship reduced it to molten glass. The message was clear: resistance would be futile. Yet still the humans refused to submit, their communications becoming increasingly stern with warnings about the consequences of hostile action. Vecteri's patience wore thin. He had a schedule to maintain and quotas to meet. The humans clearly needed a harder lesson in their place in the galactic hierarchy. He selected a small coastal city in what humans called New Zealand for his second demonstration. The order was given, and particle beams lanced down from the sky. In that moment, Vecteri made the most catastrophic mistake in the Empire's history. The death toll from the attack numbered in the thousands. A small sacrifice, he thought, to secure the compliance of billions. He didn't understand that he had just shattered a fundamental taboo. Humanity had spent the last century building international laws and agreements around one core principle: never again would they permit the wholesale slaughter of innocent civilians. The human response was immediate and unprecedented. Instead of panic or submission, every major military force on the planet mobilized with shocking precision. Vecteri watched in disbelief as his sensors detected thousands of missile launches from submarines, silos, and mobile launchers he hadn't even known existed. The humans' weapons were primitive by Imperial standards, but their sheer number and coordination was unlike anything in his experience. His fleet's energy shields easily deflected the first wave of nuclear-tipped missiles, but the attacks didn't stop. Wave after wave of increasingly sophisticated weapons probed his defenses, each volley testing and analyzing different frequencies and attack vectors. The humans were learning, adapting their tactics with disturbing speed. Even more alarming was the complete absence of chaos or dissent among the human nations. Vecteri had expected Earth's various political factions to fracture under pressure, perhaps even allied with the Empire against their rivals. Instead, he watched as former adversaries coordinated their military responses with seamless efficiency. Ancient enemies shared intelligence and resources, all focused on a single goal: defending their world from alien aggression. The Admiral's reports to the High Command became increasingly urgent. The humans' resistance was unlike anything documented in Imperial records. Their weapons might be primitive, but their tactics were innovative and their resolve unshakable. More importantly, they were adapting their technology at an alarming rate, already incorporating observed principles of Imperial energy shields into their defensive systems. Vectari's final report, sent just before the humans launched their first successful counterstrike, contained a warning that would echo through Imperial history. "We have not discovered a new client race. We have awakened a sleeping giant. The humans do not fight like a species defending territory. They fight like one avenging a moral wrong. I fear we have grossly miscalculated." Hours later, the humans demonstrated just how correct his assessment was. Their next attack wave included weapons that hadn't existed when the fleet arrived. Hybrid missiles combining human nuclear technology with crude but effective reverse-engineered Imperial shield frequencies. The first ship lost was a surprise. The next 5 fell within minutes as the humans immediately adapted their targeting algorithms based on each successful strike. For the first time in his long career, Vectari felt something alien to the Imperial mindset: doubt. He had started this campaign expecting to easily subjugate a primitive species. Instead, he had initiated a conflict with an opponent whose full capabilities were still unknown. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were learning, adapting, and growing stronger with each passing hour. As he prepared to order a tactical retreat to regroup and reassess, Vectari realized with growing dread that he had done more than just start a war. He had united humanity against a common enemy, given them access to advanced technology, and provided them with an unshakable moral justification for retaliation. The Empire had faced many foes in its long history, but never one with humanity's unique combination of technical innovation, moral outrage, and absolute determination. The age of Imperial dominance was about to end. The era of humanity was about to begin. In the 6 months following the retreat of Vectari's fleet, Earth underwent a transformation unprecedented in human history. The scattered wreckage of destroyed Zarkak ships became the foundation of humanity's technological revolution. Every damaged component, every fragment of alien technology, was studied with an intensity that would have shocked the Imperial scientists who had dismissed humans as primitive. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Sarah Chen led the reverse engineering of Imperial shield technology. Her team worked around the clock, combining theoretical physics with practical engineering in ways that constantly pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. The Zarkaks built their technology to last millennia, she explained to military observers. "We're building ours to evolve every day." The results were stunning. Within months, humanity had not only replicated Imperial shield technology, but improved upon it. The Zarkaks designed their systems for stability and longevity. Human engineers, unburdened by Imperial doctrine, created shields that could adapt and reconfigure in real time. What the Empire had achieved through millennia of incremental advancement, humanity reimagined in a matter of months. Parallel developments occurred in hidden facilities across the globe. In the Sahara Desert, vast underground factories began producing hybrid weapons that combined human ingenuity with Imperial technology. The Australian outback became home to the largest spacecraft construction facility ever built, its existence hidden by advanced holographic technology reverse-engineered from Imperial cloaking systems. But perhaps the most significant advancement came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Okonjo, a theoretical physicist from Nigeria, made a breakthrough in understanding the quantum crystalline minerals the Zarkaks had coveted. They were using these crystals in the most inefficient way possible, he reported. It's like they found a supercomputer and were using it as a calculator. His discovery led to a revolutionary new drive system that outperformed Imperial FTL technology by several orders of magnitude. The Zarkaks had built their engines to be reliable and consistent. The human version was adaptable, capable of reconfiguring its quantum matrix on the fly to achieve speeds the Empire had thought impossible. Admiral Helena Santos, appointed to lead Earth's first unified space fleet, understood the psychological advantage this technological leap provided. The Zarkax expect us to be decades away from matching their technology, she noted in a classified briefing. They certainly don't expect us to surpass it. This overconfidence will be their downfall. The fleet Santos commanded was unlike anything in Imperial records. Each ship incorporated lessons learned from centuries of human warfare, combined with technological innovations that would have horrified traditional Imperial designers. The vessels were smaller than their Zarkax counterparts, but far more maneuverable. Their adaptive shields and quantum drives made them more advanced, while their hybrid weapon systems made them deadlier. But the true advantage lay in the human crews. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of Imperial ships, human vessels operated with a flexibility that would have seemed like chaos to Zarkax commanders. Every crew member was trained to think independently, to adapt to changing situations, and to innovate in the face of challenges. In orbital shipyards hidden behind Luna, the first wave of Earth's defensive fleet took shape. These weren't just warships, they were humanity's answer to Imperial aggression. Each vessel represented a perfect fusion of human determination and reverse-engineered alien technology. The Empire had given humanity access to advanced technology, but humans had done what they always did. They had improved it, refined it, and turned it into something new. Training for the fleet's crews was equally revolutionary. Using simulators based on captured Imperial combat data, human pilots and gunners learned to exploit weaknesses in Zarkax tactics that the Empire didn't even know existed. The rigid, predictable nature of Imperial combat doctrine became a vulnerability that human strategists were eager to exploit. Meanwhile, intelligence gathered by Earth's hastily launched stealth probes painted a concerning picture of Imperial activity. The Zarkax were indeed preparing a larger invasion force, but they were doing so with the same methodical, unhurried pace that characterized all their military operations. They still didn't understand the nature of the enemy they faced. In her final inspection of the fleet, Admiral Santos stood on the bridge of her flagship, the EDF Humanity's Dawn. The ship represented everything humanity had achieved in the months since the first attack. Its quantum drive was capable of speeds that would have seemed impossible to Imperial scientists. Its adaptive shields could withstand attacks that would have destroyed Zarkax vessels 3 times its size. Its weapons combined the raw power of Imperial technology with the precision and adaptability of human engineering. They came to our world expecting to find savages, Santos addressed her crew. They thought we would bow before their superior technology and accept our place in their hierarchy. Instead, we took their technology and made it better. They thought their empire's age meant they had nothing left to learn. We will show them how wrong they were. As the final preparations were made, humanity's fleet remained hidden from Imperial detection. The Zarkax, still believing they faced a primitive species struggling to comprehend stolen technology, continued their leisurely preparation for invasion. They had no way of knowing that their intended victims had not only mastered their technology, but had surpassed it. The Empire's next encounter with humanity would not be the simple subjugation they expected. It would be a lesson in the danger of underestimating a species that had spent its entire history learning, adapting, and overcoming challenges. The silent preparation was nearly complete. Soon, the Zarkax would learn exactly what kind of enemy they had created. The Zarkax invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, their formation perfect and precise as it had been for millennia. 500 warships, the pride of the Empire's military might, arranged in the traditional attack pattern that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Grand Admiral Xenthar stood on his command deck, anticipating an easy victory over the primitive humans. The first sign that something was wrong came when his long-range sensors detected no orbital defenses around Earth, no primitive satellites, no defensive platforms, not even the scattered debris from their previous encounter. The planet appeared completely undefended, its orbit mysteriously cleared of all artificial objects. Curious, Canthar mused, but irrelevant. Begin the approach sequence. The Imperial fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their sensors scanning for any sign of resistance. They found none. Earth's cities were visible below, but there was no sign of the military response their intelligence had predicted. The Grand Admiral felt a slight twinge of disappointment. Perhaps the humans had accepted their inevitable defeat. That illusion shattered moments later. The attack came from behind. Quantum distortions rippled through space as humanity's fleet emerged from their stealth positions, their drives operating at speeds the Empire had thought impossible. Admiral Santos's voice broadcast across all Imperial frequencies. "This is Admiral Helena Santos of the Earth Defense Force. You were warned." The human ships moved with a fluidity that defied Imperial tactical doctrine. They didn't maintain rigid formations. Instead, they flowed like water, adapting their positions constantly. Their first volley targeted the rearmost Imperial vessels, weapons combining conventional warheads with quantum crystalline energy beams that cut through Zarkak's shields like they didn't exist. Zenthar's command screen erupted with damage reports. 20 ships lost in the opening seconds. The Imperial fleet attempted to regroup, to form their defensive squares, but the humans didn't allow them time to organize. Earth's vessels darted between Imperial formations, their adaptive shields shrugging off return fire while their hybrid weapons wreaked havoc. "Impossible," Zenthar whispered as he watched another squadron of his ships fall to the human attack. Their technology. They couldn't have advanced this quickly. But they had. Dr. Chen's adaptive shield technology proved its worth as Imperial energy weapons splashed harmlessly against human vessels. Dr. Okonjo's quantum drive innovations allowed Earth's ships to appear seemingly at will throughout the battlefield, striking and vanishing before the rigid Imperial formations could respond. The human fleet's tactics were unlike anything in Imperial records. Where the Zarkaks relied on overwhelming force and numerical superiority, humanity's ships employed strategies that seemed to border on chaos. They would cluster together, combining their shield frequencies to create impenetrable defensive bubbles, then scatter moments later to attack from multiple vectors. Admiral Santos coordinated the battle from humanity's dawn, her tactical display showing the systematic dismantling of the Imperial fleet. "Target their command and control nodes," she ordered. "Don't let them establish a coherent defense." The human fleet's AI systems, trained on months of Imperial combat data, predicted and countered every standard Zarkak's response. When the Empire's ships attempted to form their infamous Spear of Dominion formation, they found their targets had already moved. When they tried to withdraw to regroup, human vessels were waiting at their predicted emergence points. Zenthar watched in horror as his carefully planned invasion dissolved into chaos. His ships, designed for power and durability, couldn't match the agility of the human vessels. Their weapons, unchanged for centuries, couldn't penetrate the constantly shifting frequencies of Earth's adaptive shields. Even their vaunted numerical superiority meant nothing against an enemy that refused to fight according to established protocols. "Status report," he demanded, though he already knew the answer. "We've lost 40% of the fleet, Grand Admiral," his tactical officer responded, voice shaking. "Their weapons, they're using our own technology against us, but better. Their drives are operating at speeds our sensors can barely track. Their shields adapt faster than our targeting systems can compensate." The battle had lasted less than an hour, and already the mighty Imperial fleet was in tatters. Zenthar realized with growing dread that this wasn't just a defeat, it was a revolution in warfare. Every assumption, every doctrine, every principle of Imperial military strategy was being proven obsolete by these humans who had dared to think differently. "All ships, full retreat," he ordered, swallowing his pride. "Return to Imperial space immediately." But retreat proved as difficult as attack. The human fleet's superior drives allowed them to predict and intercept Imperial ships at their hyperspace entry points. Each attempted escape was met with precisely targeted attacks that forced the Zarkak's vessels back into normal space. Admiral Santos's voice came across the command channel again. Your empire attacked our world, killed our people, and expected us to submit. Instead, we learned. We adapted. We evolved. This is humanity's response to imperial aggression. Remember this day. The battle ended not with a glorious last stand, but with the systematic destruction of the most powerful invasion fleet the Empire had ever assembled. A handful of vessels, including Xenthar's flagship, were allowed to escape, not out of mercy, but to ensure the Empire would know exactly what had happened. As the surviving Imperial ships limped back toward their territory, they carried with them a message that would shake the foundations of the Empire. Humanity wasn't just resistant to Imperial rule. They had taken Imperial technology and transformed it into something new, something the Empire's rigid doctrine couldn't counter. The age of unchallenged Imperial superiority was over. The storm had been unveiled, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news of the invasion fleet's destruction spread through the Empire like a shockwave. In the grand halls of the Imperial Palace on Zarkax Prime, the High Council gathered in an emergency session for the first time in 5,000 years. The recordings from Grand Admiral Xenthar's flagship played on endless repeat, showing Imperial warships being systematically destroyed by vessels that shouldn't have existed. High Counselor Vexna, her scales dulled with age and wisdom, watched the footage with growing concern. In 6 months, they didn't just match our technology. They surpassed it. We haven't seen advancement at this pace since the early age of our civilization. The implications were staggering. Throughout the Empire's client worlds, news of the defeat sparked something that hadn't existed in millennia: hope. Species that had lived under Imperial rule for countless generations began to whisper about the humans who had done the impossible. Admiral Santos and the Earth Defense Force didn't give the Empire time to recover. Human ships, now equipped with even more advanced quantum drives, began appearing in Imperial space seemingly at will. They didn't attack civilian targets or population centers. They didn't need to. Instead, they struck with surgical precision at military installations, shipyards, and command centers. The Imperial response was predictably rigid. They deployed defensive fleets according to doctrines that had worked for thousands of years. The humans simply refused to engage on Imperial terms. Earth's vessels would appear, strike critical targets, and vanish before the Imperial ships could mount an effective response. Dr. Chen's adaptive shield technology had evolved further. Now, human ships could temporarily merge their shield matrices, creating impenetrable defensive formations that Imperial weapons couldn't penetrate. Dr. Okonjo's quantum drive innovations allowed Earth's fleet to predict and counter Imperial fleet movements before they even began. The psychological impact was devastating. Imperial commanders, trained to expect absolute obedience to tactical doctrine, found themselves facing an enemy that constantly innovated. Each encounter with human forces revealed new tactics, new technologies, new ways of thinking that the Empire's rigid military structure couldn't adapt to fast enough. On the occupied world of Nexus IV, the first major rebellion against Imperial rule began. The Nexarians, inspired by humanity's example, rose up against their Imperial governors. When the Empire dispatched ships to crush the rebellion, they found Earth Defense Force vessels waiting in orbit. The message was clear. The era of Imperial dominance was ending. High Counselor Vexna watched as more reports of rebellion and resistance poured in from across Imperial space. They're not just defeating our military, she realized. They're dismantling the very foundation of our power. Each victory they achieve inspires more resistance. The Empire's client races, watching human ships consistently defeat Imperial forces, began to question centuries of conditioning. The Zarkax had maintained control through a careful mixture of technological superiority and psychological dominance. Now both were crumbling. Humanity's approach to warfare continued to evolve. Earth's ships began carrying diplomatic representatives alongside their military crews. After each victory, they would broadcast messages to nearby worlds, not of conquest, but of liberation. They shared technical knowledge with former imperial subjects, teaching them to modify and improve their own technology. Admiral Santos' strategy became clear. The Earth Defense Force wasn't trying to conquer the Empire. They were breaking its psychological hold on the galaxy. Each freed world became a potential ally, each shared innovation a crack in the foundation of imperial technological superiority. The Empire attempted to adapt, to modify their tactics and technology, but centuries of rigid doctrine couldn't be overcome quickly enough. Their attempts to copy human innovations were hampered by their own cultural inflexibility. They had spent too long believing in their own superiority to effectively learn from their enemies. In a desperate move, the High Council authorized the deployment of the Empire's secret weapon, the Planet Breaker, a massive vessel capable of destroying entire worlds. It was meant to terrorize humanity and their allies back into submission. Instead, it became a symbol of imperial desperation. The Planet Breaker never got to fire a single shot. A small fleet of human ships, led by Admiral Santos herself, intercepted it en route to their first target. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Empire's ultimate weapon, designed to instill fear throughout the galaxy, was disabled and captured intact. The psychological impact was final and devastating. The Empire's last attempt at maintaining control through fear had failed spectacularly. Within days, rebellions erupted on dozens of worlds. Former imperial client races, emboldened by humanity's example, began openly defying their rulers. High Counselor Vexna stood in the imperial palace, watching real-time reports of systems declaring independence. The empire that had stood for 10,000 years was unraveling in a matter of months. "We didn't just underestimate their military capability," she addressed the council. "We failed to understand their greatest weapon, their ability to inspire others to resist." The Empire attempted to open diplomatic channels, offering concessions and compromises that would have been unthinkable months earlier. But they weren't negotiating from a position of strength anymore. Their military was in shambles, their client worlds were in open rebellion, and their technological superiority had been shattered. Humanity's response to these overtures was measured but firm. They would accept the Empire's surrender, but not their continued dominance of other species. The age of imperial rule was over. A new era of galactic cooperation, led by the examples of human innovation and adaptation, was about to begin. 1 year after the first imperial attack on Earth, the formal surrender of the Zarkax Empire took place not on their throne world, but in orbit around humanity's homeworld. The location was symbolic, a reminder of where their empire's decline had begun. The massive human flagship, Humanity's Dawn, hosted representatives from every major species in the former empire. Admiral Santos stood at the command center, watching as the imperial delegation approached in their once proud but now humbled vessels. Besides her, Dr. Chen and Dr. Okonjo observed the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. Their technological innovations had helped reshape the galaxy's balance of power in ways none of them had imagined possible a year ago. High Counselor Vexna led the imperial delegation. Age and recent events had taken their toll on the once proud leader. She moved with the careful dignity of one who had accepted the inevitable but was determined to face it with grace. The surrender ceremony was brief, but its implications would echo through history. "We acknowledge," Vexna spoke, her voice carried across all frequencies in multiple languages, "that the age of imperial dominance has ended. We surrender not just to humanity, but to the fundamental change they represent. Our empire stood for 10,000 years because we stopped evolving. Humanity showed us the cost of such stagnation. The terms of surrender were unprecedented in galactic history. The empire would not be destroyed or occupied. Instead, it would be transformed. Imperial worlds would be given the right to self-determination. The vast knowledge accumulated over millennia of imperial rule would be shared freely among all species. Most importantly, a new galactic council would be established, with representation from all spacefaring races. But perhaps the most significant change came in how the galaxy viewed humanity. They had emerged from obscurity to defeat an empire that had stood for 10,000 years, not through overwhelming force, but through innovation, adaptation, and an unwavering determination to protect not just themselves, but all sentient life from oppression. Dr. Chen's adaptive shield technology became the foundation for a new approach to defensive systems across the galaxy. Dr. Okonjo's quantum drive innovations revolutionized interstellar travel. But more than the technology, it was humanity's approach to knowledge and progress that had the most profound impact. The Empire's greatest mistake, Admiral Santos addressed the assembled representatives, wasn't attacking Earth. It was believing that power comes from maintaining the status quo. Humanity thrives on change, on challenge, on the constant drive to improve and adapt. These are the principles we offer to the galaxy. The formation of the Galactic Council marked the beginning of a new era. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of the Empire, the Council operated on principles of cooperation and shared advancement. Former imperial worlds, freed from millennia of stagnation, began to rediscover their own capacity for innovation and growth. Humanity's role in this new galactic order was unique. They were respected not just for their military victory, but for their approach to civilization itself. Earth became a center of learning, where species from across the galaxy came to study not just technology, but the human drive for continuous improvement. The former imperial capital on Zarkax Prime was transformed into the Galactic Academy of Sciences, where Dr. Chen and Dr. Okonjo led research teams composed of scientists from hundreds of species. Their work continued to push the boundaries of what was thought possible, maintaining humanity's tradition of challenging established limitations. 5 years after the surrender, Admiral Santos stood on the observation deck of the Humanity's Dawn, now serving as a training vessel for a multi-species crew. Below her, Earth's orbital shipyards were busy constructing vessels that combined technologies and insights from dozens of civilizations. Each ship represented a collaboration between species that would have been unthinkable under imperial rule. "We never wanted to rule the galaxy," she explained to a young Zarkax cadet, who asked about humanity's choice not to establish their own empire. "We wanted to free it. True strength doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from helping them realize their own potential." The legacy of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage wasn't measured in conquered territories or subjugated populations. Instead, it was visible in the flourishing of sciences, arts, and cultural exchange across formerly imperial space. Species that had been forced into stagnation for millennia were rediscovering their capacity for growth and innovation. The term Deathworlders remained, but its meaning had changed. Once used by the Empire to dismiss humanity as primitive survivors of a harsh world, it became a mark of respect. It came to represent not just humanity's physical resilience, but their mental adaptability and unwavering determination to overcome challenges. As the galaxy entered this new age of cooperation and advancement, the final lesson of humanity's rise became clear. True power lies not in maintaining control, but in embracing change and fostering growth. The humans, those upstart Deathworlders who had dared to challenge an empire, had become not conquerors, but teachers, showing the galaxy a new way forward. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, filled with the promise of infinite possibilities as countless species looked to the future not with fear of imperial reprisal, but with hope for what they might achieve together. This was humanity's greatest victory. Not the defeat of an empire, but the liberation of a galaxy's potential.